Matt Armstrong opened a package last week that made no sense on paper, and the further you pull at that thread, the more it exposes everything that's fundamentally broken about the way legacy car brands treat the people who pour their lives into preserving them. The package came from Koenigsegg, built in Ängelholm, Sweden, a company that produces somewhere between 20 and 35 cars in a full calendar year and operates at a level of mechanical exclusivity that places it in a category almost entirely by itself within the automotive world. Matt has never owned one of their cars. He has never rebuilt one, never applied a wrench to one, and by his own direct admission, never even purchased one. Yet the factory shipped him a carefully curated collection of official hoodies, T-shirts, and premium merchandise, the kind that typically only reaches people who've recently written a check for $3 million on a hypercar. Nestled inside that collection was a handwritten note carrying 4 words that deserve considerably more analysis than they initially seem to warrant. Watch the videos. No pitch came attached to that. No sponsorship proposal, no media kit, no contract language buried in a follow-up email. Just a quiet, deliberate signal from one of the most exclusive automotive manufacturers in existence, saying they've been paying attention, and they believe Matt should see something specific about how they build cars. Meanwhile, Lamborghini sent nothing. Ferrari sent nothing, and the weight of that silence becomes genuinely staggering when you map out what Matt has actually delivered to those brands over the years. He spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on genuine OEM parts sourced directly through their dealer networks. He rebuilt a Lamborghini Reventon, a 425,000-pound hybrid hypercar that arrived at the workshop as a total write-off. He brought a Ferrari 296 GTB back from a condition that Ferrari's own specialists had effectively stopped trying to fix. He saved a Murcielago and an Aventador from being stripped and crushed, and every hour of that labor produced content that generated tens of millions of views of technically detailed, deeply passionate coverage for brands that never once acknowledged it. Koenigsegg, whose cars Matt has never touched with a single tool, sent him a package from Sweden. There's a habit in conversations like this one of calling moments like this ironic, but irony implies comedic distance. What this actually represents is a quiet and specific indictment of how badly the major Italian manufacturers have misjudged the people who keep their reputations alive outside of official channels. Matt didn't build 5 million subscribers on YouTube by talking about cars from the outside looking in. He built 5 million subscribers by getting underneath them and explaining everything he found, and the audience that formed around that approach has never been an accidental one. These are automotive enthusiasts with real technical knowledge, people who can follow an explanation of why a subframe needs replacing at the structural level and why that matters for a car's long-term road legality. That audience didn't stumble onto the channel. They came looking for exactly what Matt provides, and they stayed because the standard never dropped. Christian von Koenigsegg runs his company the way an engineer thinks, and that distinction matters here more than it might anywhere else. Every car that leaves the Ängelholm factory gets assembled by hand, component by component, with a level of intentionality that the broader automotive world rarely approaches. The Jesko's light-speed transmission represents years of mechanical problem-solving compressed into a gearbox that operates faster than human reflex can register. The Regera's direct drive system eliminated the conventional transmission entirely and replaced it with something that reads as nearly impossible on paper, but outperforms the standard approach in real-world conditions. The free valve technology removes the camshaft from the equation entirely, which is exactly the kind of engineering decision that most manufacturers look at and conclude represents more complexity than it's worth pursuing. Koenigsegg concluded it was worth solving and built an entirely new engine architecture around that answer. When a company built on that philosophy studies a YouTube channel focused on exotic car restoration and decides to reach out, that decision isn't casual. The note in that package, "Watch the videos," wasn't a gesture toward a name on an influencer database. The team in Sweden had already done the work before that box got sealed. They knew which cars Matt had rebuilt. They understood how he communicated the process to his audience. They recognized that the level of technical depth he brings to automotive restoration content places him in a genuinely different category from the vast majority of what the platform carries. Most automotive content on the internet lives at the surface level, passenger seat angles and engine sounds cut to slow motion footage. Matt goes into the engineering. He explains why carbon fiber tubs get bonded the specific way they do. He walks through how an insurance company reaches a write-off classification and what that designation actually means for every structural component of the vehicle. Koenigsegg is an engineering company first. That approach lands differently with them than it does with a brand whose marketing priority is a 30-second social clip. 5 million subscribers is the number that gets cited in every version of this story, and it matters. But the composition of that audience is what the team in Ängelholm almost certainly spent more time thinking about. These are not passive viewers arriving through an algorithm recommendation and clicking away after 90 seconds. These are people who sit through full multi-hour rebuild videos from the first damage panel assessment to the final road test. People with enough mechanical knowledge to follow explanations that would lose a general audience within the first 10 minutes. That's a specific and irreplaceable kind of reach in the automotive space, and it's the kind that builds brand credibility within the car enthusiast community in ways that traditional paid advertising has never been able to produce. The people who will never buy a Koenigsegg in their lifetimes still spend years talking about the brand, and the people who eventually will buy one are watching content creators exactly like this one right now. There's also a longer commercial calculation at work here that's worth naming directly. Matt's channel is growing. The jump from 5 million to 10 million is a question of when, not whether, and Koenigsegg is building this relationship, while the cost of entry is still a box of merchandise and a 4-word note. By the time that subscriber count doubles, the connection will have existed long enough to be the foundation of something much larger. Ferrari and Lamborghini will still be sending nothing. That asymmetry in strategic thinking is going to cost those brands in ways they won't fully recognize until the gap becomes impossible to close. The forward path here moves in 3 plausible directions, each building on the last. The most natural first step is a visit to Ängelholm, walking the production facility where each car takes shape by hand, and spending time with Christian von Koenigsegg, going deep into the engineering decisions that separate his cars from every other hypercar carrying a comparable price tag. That video would pull in an audience extending well beyond the existing subscriber base. The second direction is seat time, putting Matt behind the wheel of a 1.1 or a Regera for the first time, and capturing the genuine response from someone who has spent years rebuilding fast cars, but never experienced that specific tier of performance. The third, and the scenario that would genuinely change the relationship between luxury automotive manufacturers and the people who document their cars, is a full workshop rebuild. A flood-damaged car, a test mule, a write-off that would normally get disposed of quietly, handed to Matt with full factory access, technical documentation, and genuine part support, filmed from the first damage assessment through to the final alignment check and road test. That last scenario carries stakes that extend far beyond view counts or sponsorship value. The culture surrounding exotic car restoration has long maintained a deliberate wall between manufacturers and anyone working outside of their authorized service networks. Parts are made difficult to source independently. Technical data gets withheld from anyone without a franchise dealer designation. The unspoken position from most manufacturers has always been that their engineering belongs to the brand and not to the people who own the physical cars. A Koenigsegg rebuild conducted with full factory transparency and support would dismantle that assumption with a single project. It would demonstrate that opening the engineering process to documented public scrutiny strengthens a brand rather than exposing it, and it would force every other manufacturer to examine what they've been protecting and ask whether that protection ever served them the way they assumed. None of this came to Matt because he changed his approach or targeted a different audience. No strategic session about which manufacturer to pursue, no pivot in content direction to appeal to a premium demographic, no cold outreach to a Swedish PR contact. He kept rebuilding cars the way he always has, in a workshop, in a hoodie, with a camera running and a clear explanation ready for every step of the process. The work found its own audience over time, and that audience eventually reached a factory in Sweden that builds 30 cars a year and apparently watches automotive YouTube with considerably more attention than Lamborghini or Ferrari ever thought to. The brands that received the most loyalty took it for granted. The brand that received none of it decided that loyalty was worth earning before there was any obvious commercial reason to earn it. Koenigsegg looked at what Matt had built across years of that work and reached out before any formal structure existed, before any agency had pitched the partnership, and before there was a contract to negotiate. Just a package in the mail, arriving from Ängelholm to a workshop that had never once seen a Koenigsegg come through its doors. that box was not merchandise. It was a statement about how a company that produces 30 cars a year understands the people who genuinely care about cars and about engineering. And when the first Koenigsegg eventually rolls through that workshop door and the camera starts running, the note tucked inside a shipping box in Sweden will have been the moment the whole thing actually started.